but not when it's 20-20-20, which is what Russell Westbrook did Tuesday night against the LA Lakers. 20-20 and 21 assists to be exact. Second 20-20-20 triple-double in NBA history. And of course, Wilt Chamberlain had the first. Count Billy Donovan impressed.
Well, I mean, obviously it hadn't been done in 50 years, so it speaks to, how hard it is to do. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is, when, the first time he got a season, where he averaged a triple-double hadn't been done in such a long time since Oscar Robertson. Now he's on pace to do it for 3 straight years, and that's unheard of. But I think more, deeply that touched me in the whole situation was the emotions that he felt towards his friend and what he meant to him. And I think anytime you lose a loved one that's close to you, when you're really impacted by that, I think his emotion after the game in trying to honor his friend is really what stood out to me.
Emotional night around the NBA it was. For OKC now, they got to worry about how they're playing going into the playoffs. They are a playoff team. The question is how formidable a playoff team based on recent results. They've lost 7 of their last 10. The offense has really struggled, and whether it's the shoulder or something else, we have not seen the same Paul George that was in the MVP conversation prior to the All-Star break.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. Seeing Paul George being hindered in some capacity with the shoulder injury, and I mean, they kept that thing pretty close in-house, the extent of the injury. And I think that Russell is trying to take on more, do as much more as possible. He's playing a lot of different roles now, a variety of roles. And, being in that locker room with Russell, he's a guy that, he questioned the trust sometimes of guys, and are they able to be consistent and maintain that? And I feel like he's just trying to take it all upon himself, because in a picture-perfect world for that team, Paul George had to be the guy. Mm-hmm. And then Russell was, playing off him amazingly well. And now he has to be the guy again. And then Paul George is playing the reserve role as the B guy. So right. I think they're struggling with that space.
I think the biggest issue for them, and if you really look at it, Paul George's shooting numbers have gone down, but his actual raw numbers are the same they've been all season. This is about the season-long development of an identity for the rest of your guys, to me, around your star players, that's never really come to fruition.
Right.
We've seen Grant, Ferguson, different guys play well in moments. We haven't seen one of them get on the kind of skis that a Malik Beasley in Denver had.
Yeah.
Or, we haven't seen Dennis Schroeder play consistent.
He's had moments.
He's had moments.
Not very good in March.
If you're talking about being the kind of team, like doing what Denver has done this year, it takes not just your main guys, but it takes 2 or 3 auxiliary players to step up and play at a consistent level, whether it's off the bench or something else, to give you that lift when something happens to a Paul George. Right. Paul George's shoulder gets bad, or Russ is struggling with his shot. Name me the 2 other guys in that rotation in Oklahoma City who have stepped up and played at that next level. You can't identify them.
There aren't many other guys in that roster who can consistently create their own shots or hit outside shots, which has been a problem in OKC for years. And offensively, you'll see here the numbers in terms of rankings around the NBA since the All-Star break. Not good.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking these supporting players.
Great role play.
Because guys, you play your role based on what the team is asking you to do. But they've not developed the kind of default setting as a group that they can compensate for Russ or Paul George not playing at a galactic level. To me, that's always a fatal flaw for a team that's trying to aspire to be something big, when you don't have the kind of personnel that can lift you up when your best guys are not at their very best.
Not just compensate, but space the floor, which we've talked about on this show a million times. The Thunder have not been a good three-point shooting team for years now, and you see the numbers there. And they're dead last in field goal percentage since the All-Star break. Their margin for error when their defense is not elite, and it's been good most of the year, not as good the last month or so. But when it's not elite, their margin for error offensively is pretty small.
Exactly. And that brings me back to the point that I made by saying if Russ sees that guys can't stay and maintain that performance level, he's going to take it all upon himself and try to do just about everything, because that's just the competitor nature of, Russell Westbrook. That's what makes him great. It's also what hinders him at times. So he's just going to leave it all out there and just, play, 2020 basketball for the remainder of this season
Sure,
and obviously going into the playoffs.
Yeah, well, he's going to put up numbers, you know that. But that doesn't necessarily mean wins all the time, right?
Because at this stage of his career, Russ's numbers have to mean more than just piling up numbers. And that's, to me, that's what's been the big dilemma for Oklahoma City. You can get caught up in a guy playing with the fury and the energy that Russ does, but at some point it has to translate to that energy lifting up that 7th or 8th guy on the roster to make sure he compensates and helps lift, with some of that lifting as well.
Ultimately wins.
Yeah. Yep. Oklahoma City, again, 7th in the West. They've got the Detroit Pistons in town tonight. And if you weren't with us earlier, Blake Griffin will play and start for the Pistons after missing 3 straight games. Keep it